In today's episode, we're speaking to Natanya Bravo. Natanya has spent the first part of her career living bi-coastal between New York and Los Angeles, creating a global brand marketing campaigns for Fortune 500 consumer brands, including Adidas, BMW, and Coca-Cola, among others. While successful by society's terms, she knew she wasn't living up to her potential. Tired of saying one day, she finally listened to that internal voice, leapt into the unknown. Leaving behind a successful career, Natanya booked a one-way ticket to Paris to realize her potential and create her dream life. Let's speak to Natanya and find out how she changed her life by changing her mindset. Let's find out. Welcome, welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And today I'm so excited. We have the beautiful, the charming, the wonderful Natanya Bravo. Welcome, Natanya.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you finally made it. We have been trying to do this for a while now.
Yeah.
Natanya, everyone's heard how amazing you are in the intro, but please, in your own words, share with everybody what it is that you do.
Yeah, I'm a business and mindset coach. I primarily work with women, entrepreneurs, executives to really help them be radically honest with themselves in a way that completely shifts the trajectory of their life. So a lot of our work is mindset, but also business things and combining the two worlds together.
Awesome, fantastic. And so, Natanya, tell us, how did you begin your, journey? Nobody wakes up one day and goes, I'm going to be a business coach. Especially, this profession wasn't even available when we were growing up, right? It wasn't even in existence. So, how did you end up coming to being a mindset and a business coach?
Yeah, and I actually still am like, how am I never intended to be a coach at all. I still ask myself that same question. Honestly, I think it was my own personal journey as well as professional experience. So I was in a 10-year brand marketing career where I worked in New York and LA, working in the media and entertainment industry. And before doing that, that was my goal. That was like my one day dream, was to work in the entertainment industry, to throw these parties, work with celebrities, work with all the cool brands. And so I went to school, I studied marketing and PR, and I got an internship and worked really hard. You know, at this time, internships were not paid. So I was working full time for $0 with the hope that someone would hire me. And luckily they did. And I managed to move up pretty quickly. So I was kind of checking, which we all know, checking those boxes, right, that we think we're supposed to do of, okay, I'm going to make six figures. I'm going to buy a home. I did all of that before what at the time was like the dreaded age of 30. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 30. I have to have my whole life figured out, which is completely ridiculous because I think the older you get, you realize how much you just still don't actually know. And in going through that, I actually put tons of pressure on myself. I was very shy and introvert. I would have never said I do the work that I do now. I was very self-conscious. I had a lot of anxiety. I used to suffer from anxiety attacks, and being in a high pressured environment and high pressured job, it really exasperated that. So I had really a moment of what most of us would refer to as kind of your breakdown to breakthrough, where I was on the train in New York. I had not slept for days because I was working about 80-hour weeks at this time, and I collapsed, literally just collapsed. Like I felt my heart like beating really fast. I was like gasping for breath, and I just collapsed. And in that moment, shortly after the panic of everyone around me, like, are you okay? I realized that I was not okay. And I don't mean just physically okay, like emotionally, like I actually wasn't happy. On the outside, I was presenting as someone as happy, but I was crying when I got home from work. I was crying on my way to work. I was crying on the plane to go to wherever I had to go next. But there was also this immense guilt of, but you're supposed to be happy, because I was very fortunate and blessed. I did have financial stability, especially for a 27, 26-year-old. Like I didn't really, especially living in New York, I was single, I didn't have kids, so I didn't really have to worry about bills so much. I was able to travel, but it was just not for me. But then at the same time, the idea of what's your passion, what's your purpose, that so many of us hear, I would cringe at. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I don't have one of those. Maybe I'm just like, something's wrong with me. I'm broken. And I really just went on this self-exploration journey that was led by that moment in the train. I hired my own life coach. At the time, I didn't even know what that was. I literally came across a post on Facebook of this guy that called himself a life coach, and something about what he said spoke to me. And I was like, well, we got nothing else to lose. hired him. I started taking myself out on dates. I'd been on the dating struggle bus for years. And I was like, you know
Mm.
what? You're going to date yourself. And that was not something I would ever do. Like I said, I was really shy. So the idea of going to dinner by myself was really uncomfortable. But in leaning into that discomfort is what allowed me to ultimately, years later, quit that job, move to Paris, and create this business that is now the Bravo Life.
Wow. Okay. Wow. 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 So many aha moments over there, so many pivotal moments in your life. I'm gonna say this. When you are sad and upset, and now the reason why I'm picking this up is because a lot of people will be in similar situations. They will think, well, hang on a minute. I have a job that most people would die for. I
Mhm.
have this privileged, place to be. I not only is it pays well, but it's a kind of dream job for a lot of people. It's something that I
Yeah.
worked for all my entire life. It's
Mhm.
something that I've dreamt about when I was growing up, and and all of these things and so forth. So why am I not happy? There's something wrong with me.
Right.
So how did you talked about it, you were crying, but how do you actually recognize there was nothing wrong with you? Or even would have packed up the courage to pick up, to hire that life coach. Maybe it was him
Yeah.
who highlighted to you. But this is a very important point, because a lot of the times we would go through our life and have a moment when we start feeling unhappy and we blame ourselves that there's something wrong with me.
Mhm.
Maybe I want too much, or I'm in the wrong place, or maybe I need to find God, or maybe something. They don't
Yeah.
actually realize that it's actually God speaking to them, or universe, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever term you want to give it. The universe speaking to you and telling you you're not in the right place anymore. You've this place is done with you. You're done with this situation. And it's great. You had to be here. You had to learn these skills, but now it's time to move on into something else. I have bigger plans for you. I have different plans for you, whatever
Mhm.
it is. How do you listen to that voice, which is actually a whisper? It's not even a loud
Yeah.
voice. It's a little whisper.
Yeah. And so it starts as a whisper, right? And then
Mm,
it's like it's a tap on the shoulder. And then one day it's a pebble on your window,
mm,
until one day it's literally a boulder, like, no, you have to move. And so I can't say that I, in the process of this, knew that it wasn't me. I didn't know. I just knew what I'm currently doing is not working. And so I have nothing else to lose. Let me try hire
mm.
a coach. Let me try take, because worst case scenario, I'll be exactly where I am right now,
Yeah.
right? I'm already here. And I think I just got tired of not doing anything. And so even when I didn't know I wanted to start a business, I knew I always had dreams of creating a platform for women, but I didn't really know what that meant. Is it a blog? Is it a physical place? I had no idea. And so instead of me trying to figure out the final idea, which I spent years trying to do and couldn't, I was like, let me just try to do things that are actually bringing me joy, which, yes, was the support of this coach and other people in my life. And so I started taking piano lessons. Nope, not for me. Figured that didn't work for me. I started, like I said, traveling alone and just testing out what would I do if I was doing what Natanya wants to do and not what I think I'm supposed to be doing. And in doing that process is, I think, where the realization came from, but that wouldn't have happened without taking the action first, which I think is a challenge for most of us because
Yeah.
we want the clarity first. But I really believe the clarity comes through the action and not the other way around. And so it does require some messy, uncomfortable action where you don't really know what you're doing. And that's okay, because like I said, what's the worst that can happen? You're going to be right back where you are today.
Exactly. And I love that. I love that. It's something you said again, which hit my heart, was doing what Nathania wants to do, not what I think she should do. I think that's such a powerful line, because I think a lot of the time, myself included, we go through life doing, and then we pivot, and then we get back into that rut where you start thinking, okay, this is what I think I'm supposed to be doing. This is not what I'm meant to be doing. And I had recently had a big aha moment. Um, when I took myself out and I went on a retreat with someone else with deep meditation work. And that's when I realized that, yes, I have a very flourishing business and I've got all this happening. And why I want to pivot and I want to go in still coaching, but a different direction. And it's a new area, it's a new thing. And I could take this to a million a month business, whereas that's a complete fresh start and a
Yeah.
different in a way. And it'll be different clientele, because this clientele is different. So it's literally starting my business from scratch.
Yeah.
But I have this inner pull, like that's what I need to be doing. I'm
Mhm.
making money is great, and I love making money. Don't get me wrong, I'm a money coach, but it's not just about the money. It's about more than that. And I know that, you know, when this works, not if, when this works out, I'll make just as much money from this
Yep,
project as I will from the other one.
probably
But
even more.
yeah, because I'm now being pulled towards it. I think
Yeah.
I'm done with this element of what I'm doing. I may continue with it still on the side. It'll be something that becomes part of my greater my greater business, but it's not the sole focus of business. But it's illogical. It sounds when people are moving onto the online space, I want to move away from the online space. It's completely
Yeah.
counterintuitive. I'm comfortable making less money. Da, da, da. It makes no sense logically for me to just pivot.
Yeah.
I hear you. It's that you have to do it. You have to do it. And I
Yeah.
have the palpitation in my heart, like, okay. And all the same thing. Well, people come? Will they understand? Will they get my message? All of those questions, the imposter syndrome comes all the way flooding back in, like, oh my days, I thought I dealt with this a few years ago. I'm back to back to here again. But every time you have that pivotal moment, every time you have to have the shift in who you are, because that's where the growth comes in, you're gonna find out, well, actually, I mean, it's like in the same place. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like taking messy action. Exactly what you said. Take action, take messy action, and figure it out on the way, and you'll make mistakes. I think another thing you said, which I love about what your story is, you gave yourself permissions to make mistakes. We don't do that. So let me try playing the piano. Oh, I don't like playing the piano. Let me try something else. You didn't say, oh, I spent that time and money paying the piano. Why would I do that? Let me try a bit hard. You said, no, I tried it, didn't like it, move on. I love that. How do you develop that? Like, give yourself permission to make mistakes, learn from it, go ahead and try and figure it out. That's a great mindset to have.
Yeah, I think it's also, I love what you just shared as well, because I have experienced in the last year something very similar in my own business where I started to feel what I felt when I was working in corporate of I'm comfortable. I don't, I'm good at it, but am I really passionate about it? And that same coach, I still work with him, this is 10 years later now, was like, when is the last time you felt this feeling? And it brought me back to that place. And I think part of that, and that work that my coach helps me do, that I help my clients do, I'm sure you do it with you, is looking for the patterns, right? And so when you said, how can you build up the force to be able to make mistakes? I try to look for the patterns and see the lessons. So for me, what I've seen in my life is that every time something new and exciting has blossomed, I've created something that's really been aligned for me, whether that was moving to Paris or my business or my husband now, it is because I leaned into both fear and excitement. And so now I know that's my go sign when I'm terrified, but there's also this excitement of like, well, what if it works? That means I have to do it. Like I absolutely have to. And so now that I've seen that pattern, because I've done it more than once now, it's a little bit easier, but it's still like exactly what you said. It's still terrifying, right? When you're doing something completely new.
Yeah, I think it's even more so when you have limited amount of time and you think, okay, I've got something that's working. I have time that I'm dedicating towards it. Where am I going to find to get the time out to start building something new? A lot, even the fact that I have all the other businesses, and that's really, I mean, what I just said was nothing more than excuses. All your excuses come to the surface. So I always say I'm a full-time mother and a part-time business owner. That's literally my life, and I have multiple businesses. But my kids always come first. So even just now, I went to drop my son off to cricket practice before I came here. So my life revolves around these two little bees, which are not so little anymore, actually. But and I keep thinking, well, I don't have much time for, other things anyway. And I've got this property business and I've got that business and I want to open something new. Are you crazy? So your excuses come to the forefront. Like they really do attack you. How do you nip them on the butt? Like, you know what? Shh, be quiet. I'm going to move ahead. I'm going to move. I'm going to do this. How do you, because they do, and they're legitimate excuses. Like the excuse I just said, and is an excuse, by the way. But if I didn't know that, if I didn't recognize it, it'd be a legitimate reason for me not to go ahead. I'm making good money. I have multiple business anyway. I mean, coaches now become part of my passion project rather than actually money, because I don't need it to make money because I've got other businesses making money. So why do I need to pivot? Why don't you change? Why don't you do something else? I can just stay here and, and now still start, instead of making money, let's start working on wealth. Let's do those kind of strategies. But even though that's all true, there's a part of me saying, no, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those excuses or recognize the reasons that are coming up are just your excuses.
Yeah, so I do these breakthrough weekends with my clients, and one of the exercises that we do that anyone can do is we take a board, like a physical board, and we put post-it notes with all the things that if there were no limits, what would your life look like? What would your work look like? What time would you wake up? What would you do with your partner? Where would you travel? Where would you live? And we just put it all on the board, right? With no, but I can't because whatever. We're ignoring that just for the 15 minutes that we're just going to play in creativity land. And then we ask, okay, what is in the way between you where you are today and all the things on that board? And they'll usually come up with a list of things like we all would, right?
Yeah.
Well, I can't because who's going to care? I can't do that because my kids are in school. And if I move them out of school, I can't do that because my partner wouldn't want to do that. All the reasons, quote unquote, aka what we know are really excuses that we believe are keeping us between where we are and where we want to go. And then what I like to do is rewrite them, but I don't rewrite them from a place of fake confidence that I don't really believe, because then you're not going to be able to get behind it. At least I can't personally. And so what I typically like to do is I look for real life evidence of when the opposite of what I've just said as my excuse or reason has actually been true. So maybe I've said, well, I can't. So for example, I host retreats. And so maybe I would say, I can't host a retreat because no one's going to sign up and pay thousands of dollars and fly and all the rest of it. Right. And so then I might look for evidence, whether it's my own evidence or other people's evidence, of almost like, could you defend this in a court of law? 100% of the time you couldn't. And so what would be the opposing counsel's argument? Right. And so I allow myself to then, on one side of the board, I've got all the reasons I believe I can or that it won't work for me. And then on the other side, I'm rewriting real truths. Do I believe that this is an actual truth that I can get behind, so that when that thought comes up, I've kind of got this library or arsenal of ways of reframing? Exactly what you said. Catch the thought, nope, we're not going there. And then what do I want to replace that thought with? And again, not every day is perfect. There are absolutely days where the thoughts don't work and I'm just in my mood, right? But I acknowledge and allow myself to be in there for a limited time. And then I pick myself back up. I've got post-it notes all over my office. I surround myself with what I need to hear. I'm almost being my own coach, right? Where, what do I need to hear right now? What would I say to a friend who was telling me this? Because we often are so good at like counseling our friends and families, and we see so much potential in them. If your friend said, well, I'm thinking of starting this business, but like, I don't know, what would you say to her? You wouldn't be like, no, you shouldn't, you're awful.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. And I would, yeah, and that's absolutely true. I would go above and beyond and try and find all the ways that I can give her evidence, provide her evidence. I'm a lawyer, so I have a very strong analytical mind. So I will look for evidence of incidents in her life where she's behaved or done something and achieved something, above and beyond what she thought was possible, and give her, look, you can do this. That means you have this skill, which means you have this skill, which means you can overcome this, which means you can overcome that, you can overcome this. So we have all these evidences to prove we can do all of these things. So yeah, you're gonna be great.
Yeah. And I think it's like you said, you're a lawyer, so you get what I was saying.
Yeah.
But for me, I find it hard. Affirmations are great, but I can't get behind an affirmation that I don't currently believe. And so I believe really in meeting yourself where you currently are and gradual shifts. You can't go from I'm always going to be broke and I don't believe that I can make money to I'm a millionaire. Like you don't believe it. So stop. Like, what if we could potentially shift that to money comes and goes? Like, do you believe that? Yes. Okay. Let's get behind that and like gradually move the needle in whatever it is, whether it's money or love or business or whatever relationships, just kind of meeting yourself where you are and how can you shift where you are into a positive aspect, not faking it till you making it, but really something you can get behind, and then gradually moving that needle along the line.
That's a beautiful way to say it. I mean, that's actually another point to remember. You can't say things that you don't actually believe in. I think that's a major issue that we have, and that's why I don't like affirmations. I like belief statements, intention statements, but affirmations I'm not keen on at all. And there are tools available to us which we can use, like the mirror exercise and other things you can use to make yourself believe what you're saying. And then if you can make yourself believe, you can make $100, you can make yourself believe you can make 100 million. It doesn't make that much of a difference. You can collapse time, but it takes you can't go from $100 to 100 million. You need to be able to see, okay, you first practice the tool, practice the muscles. It's like, it's, the stronger your manifesting muscle, the stronger your believing muscle, the stronger it is you can jump from A to B.
Yeah.
That's in any sports or any activity. But I think you have to be able to believe it. A lot of the times we are too busy believing all the negative things we hear about ourselves in our minds.
Right.
And then we don't even take the action. We're like, I know I'm supposed to do this. I feel like I should do this, but maybe later.
Yeah.
Let me deal with this, or when I let my kids get older, or let me finish with this, or let me finish this mortgage, or let me finish this. There's always a reason to delay, because a lot of people don't actually say no to these inspirations. They say, let me put it on hold for a bit. And I know I've been guilty of it myself. So we don't say no, and especially those of us who are, who read all these personal development books and are enlightened. No, of course I can do it. I know I can do it. Not now.
Not now, just a little later. Yeah.
So how do you overcome that? Because that's a very sly way of your subconscious mind to keep you where you are, by saying you're not procrastinating, you're not putting on, doing anything wrong. You're just putting on hold. You're putting on the shelf for the time being, because you've got so many important things to do. And that's a logical way to think about it.
Right.
And the more analytical you are, the more likely you are to believe that kind of scenario.
Yeah.
How do you bypass or recognize that kind of behavior?
I think I now am more afraid of wondering what if a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, than trying now and quote unquote failing. I am more afraid of that, because even when I was going to move to Paris, one of my friends, she asked me a question I encourage us all to ask ourselves or those around us: what's something you always wanted to do that you never said out loud? And I said, I've always wanted to move to Paris. And I'd never said that verbally to anyone. And she was like, oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps. You have to do it. And I was like, you're insane. Like, I can't. I have all the excuses, right? I've got a mortgage, I've got a job, I've got this big project coming up, and maybe one day. That's not on the calendar, by the way.
Of course, one day is never on the calendar. But there are days on the calendar, but one day it's not on my calendar.
It's not one.
No one's calendar, yeah.
And I think her saying, like, you have to do it, made me start to look at those excuses. And I remember when I did eventually, it was only about 4 months later, I gave my boss notice, and she started to tear up, and she was like, I wish I would have done this at your age. I have always wondered what my life would have been like. I've dreamed of living in Paris, and I'm just so proud of you. Like, I'm devastated that you're leaving, but I just wish I would have done that for myself. And I think her words and her tearing up and crying really stuck with me, of like, we only get one of these. I don't know where I'm going to be in 6 months. None of us do. I don't know. You don't know when your last day is going to be. And so why not just try? And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be afraid, right? I always say, like, bring fear. Fear, you're coming along. Let's get in the car, but I'm driving. Like, you can come in the car with me. That's fine. You're going to be there, but you don't get to steer where we're going. I'm going to drive. And so really not waiting for fear to go away or the perfect time, because there never will be, and really leaning into the fear of, what if I don't do this? And I'm sitting here wondering 2 years from now, when maybe it's not as easy, not as possible. I have a kid now, I am married now. I wouldn't necessarily just pick up and move to Paris with a child and a husband.
It's more difficult, yes, of course.
Yeah.
When there are, especially when partners, not so much, but when you have children, definitely it's more difficult. And you have to think of their well-being and the kind of impact that they will have and so forth. People still do it.
Yeah,
people do it, traveling with them too. But I think, knowing me, I think it would have been a lot easier. I did a lot more traveling without kids than I have with kids, I have to say. And even now, their education is of paramount importance. So I wouldn't move until they're in uni, and then I'm free again. That's how I see myself. And a lot of people do. Yeah, again.
So it gives you more things to think about, right? My mom actually moved us all over the world, but it does require more planning. It's not as simple as, I'm going, which is still terrifying. But then when you add other people in their lives into the equation. And so I think that also just allows me to always think of, like, you just never know if this, right? You can say you're going to do it in 6 months, but you don't know what your life will or won't look like in 6 months. And then will you be sitting wondering, like, well, what if I would have started 6 months ago?
Yeah. I mean, something you said, which was beautiful, was you fit, you can come with me, but you're sitting in the backseat of the car, but I'm driving. I think that's such a beautiful line, because a lot of the time it's not that we people who take action, or people who move ahead, or people who achieve things, they don't lack fear. they just have the courage to face the fear and do it, regardless. They don't stop themselves. And I think this is such an important point to recognize. You and I, it's not that we don't have fear. We have phobias and fears. And, sometimes we're like, mortified. I mean, every time I think of taking a different step, and if I think it's going to have a negative impact on my children, I'm like, oh, I'm mortified. But a lot of the times, especially when it came to, my career choice, rather than going back to law or choosing this profession, it was, I had to make it. There's no way around it. I was going to make it. And it's when it's that I'm going to make it regardless, and the failure is not an option, I'm going to make it work. That's when, things really begin to shift. You have to just face your fear and do it regardless. And
I think there has to be a decision, right? And for me, a decision is I have cut all other options. Like, I'm doing this. I may not know how I'm going to get there. I may not know when it's going to happen, but I've already decided that it has. It's not like I heard you restate something earlier when you said, if it works, and then you were like, no, it's going to work. Like, you've decided, right? And when you move with that energy, I've never seen anyone who's made a decision not far exceed whatever they set out to do. It just doesn't exist.
Brilliant. And I love that, because you do have to make a firm decision first before things are made available to you. And something you said earlier, which got me thinking, every report I've read about people, on the deathbeds or in the old age, what do you regret? Nobody regrets doing things. Everybody regrets not doing things, including the stupid silliness, sleeping around or whatever the hell, or partying or whatever it may be. You think, oh my God, that's, whatever. But when you're older, you actually regret not doing the stuff rather than actually doing the stuff. If you made some silly mistakes, you've done something, you can laugh about it.
Yeah.
But you're never going to be sad about things you've done or actually taken it, as long as you haven't hurt someone, by the way. Just
yes, of course.
assuming that, right? But when it comes to yourself and all the stupidness you can think of, or all the times you took risks, you never regret those. You always regret things you didn't do, like moving to Paris and going abroad. I remember when I remember part of my degree was I did a degree in LLB in English and European law. So part of my degree was I got to go and live in Leiden University in the Netherlands and study my third year there. I remember that was terrifying at the time. And unfortunately, during that year, my mum passed away too. So it wasn't a great year. It didn't end up being a great year. It was awful. But at the time, I was like, oh, maybe I should have stayed that extra year here and whatever else. But in hindsight, I know that year was important for me to have the separation from my mother, because had I not had that separation, because she was going to go, that was her time. It was meant to be. So she was going to go regardless of whether I stayed here or not. But had I lived here and I hadn't moved abroad, I wouldn't have got the independence that I needed. And more importantly, the separation that I needed to survive without her, because I still, was very, very close to her. I think I would have ended up in the grave next to her, not long after, had I not had the separation. So in hindsight, you can see how the world works and what happens. But that was a risk. At the age of, I think I was 20, 21 at the time. So I think in life, things which are terrifying are actually for your benefit. And when you look back in life, whether you succeeded them or not, they've taught you something beyond what you could have learned or realized in your current circumstances. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I think, again, that hindsight 2020 is not a saying for no reason. I think oftentimes when we're in it, it's hard to see what the lesson is or what we're learning from this. But again, that goes back to looking at the patterns in your life. No matter what age you are, you've had patterns, you've had circumstances and situations happen where you can look and see consistent lessons. And now, how can I apply this to what I'm currently experiencing? Because oftentimes we're just so blinded by feeling this submersion of whatever is outside circumstances that are happening in that moment, which very often I also ask myself, like, will this, in the way that I'm currently looking at it, matter in 5 years, in 10 years? And a lot of the things that we stress ourselves out about won't, but it feels so big in the moment, right? And I mean, just the fact that you at 21, 22 years old, had that moment separate from your mom, and now in hindsight can look back at that and have all of those amazing gems. Like, wow, what like amazing personal growth and development and all of it, like just to be able to see how that process was serving. Because, like you just said, I think so many of us would have crumbled, especially at that such a young age, like would have crumbled from that. But, like you said, there were things within that experience that I'm sure were awful, but also things that were a blessing in hindsight.
Always. I think I truly believe that divine, because I don't force religion on people. So I say, divine sense energy for me, but or universal energy for whoever doesn't believe in it. It's okay, it's all good. We're all the same,
Yeah.
we're all on the same path with different names. But I really do believe that God, God does, or universe does things things for you, not to you. So everything that
Yeah.
happens, good, bad, and ugly, you may see it as good, bad, and ugly. That's your perception of it. But everything's happening in your favor. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can see it quickly, and other times it's, you can see it in hindsight. And not
Mhm.
everything you think is good for you actually ends up being good for you in hindsight
Yeah.
either. And, you end up looking back and think, oh, maybe
Yeah.
that wasn't such a good thing after all. So everything's happening, but everything happens for you. It's helping you to grow in some way, even if you don't like it. And I think this was an important lesson for me, that I truly believe everything in my life ever, and for everyone else too, it's always been for you, not to you. Okay,
Yeah.
so on that note, we're going to wrap up. Tell us, Natanya, how can we find you? Where can we connect with you on the internet?
Yeah, so I am at the Bravo Life on all platforms. I primarily hang out on Instagram, but I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. But yeah, send me a message. I love saying hello. I love actually talking to real humans on social media. I know sometimes we just like scroll and peek and, I do the same. We look at each other's lives, but I do enjoy actual human interaction. So please say hello. And yeah, I'm at the Bravo Life.
Fantastic. So if you are listening to us on the podcast, the link for Tanya would be in the show notes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, down below in the description section, we will have all her links. So do check her out. She's awesome, and connect with her on all of the platforms, especially IG, because that's where she hangs out. Well, thank you so much, Tanya, for being such an amazing guest today on Friday Feature. We have to have you back for Money Talkies and continue the conversation a bit further. But
Yes,
today, thank you so much.
thank you.
And thank you for listening to me and Natanya today on Friday Feature. I will be back with another amazing guest, finding out how they change their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull signing off. Take care and bye for now.